We, the RMS community, would like to acknowledge that our school is built upon the unceded lands of the Abenaki and Pennacock peoples. The land was stolen. We recognize that these peoples were removed by the government and did not willingly leave.
This displacement still affects Indigenous people today. For example, many nations locally and across the United States do not have access to clean water and other vital resources.
Despite its stained past, we are grateful to be able to use this land to learn, grow, and draw inspiration from Indigenous people. We are indebted to them because we have all benefited from this land.
Therefore, we are committed to support and preserve the Native communities living here today. While we cannot change the past, we can dedicate ourselves to creating a better future for all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very impressive, and thank you very much for that. I should add that today, coincidentally, Dartmouth College is repatriating the papers of Samson Occam to the Mohegan tribe in Connecticut. It's a big deal. And about time. I have to acknowledge a few people, and thereby I will miss a few people, so my apologies to them. First of all, I have to acknowledge my brother, without whom this night would never have happened. Doug and I both started playing lacrosse, and as soon as we moved from Ohio to Maryland, we had never heard of lacrosse before that, but we quickly became big fans and players. Doug played at the Naval Academy, I played at Princeton. Doug went on to become the head coach of the Dartmouth varsity men's team for more than a decade. And also, we've both been involved with peace activism. And Doug was the president of the main chapter of Veterans for Peace for many years. Now, if you're interested in lacrosse and peace, you all are inevitably going to come across the name of Chief Oren Lyons. And indeed, Doug did. And he also had a neighbor, Rob Shetterly, who was a painter who has done a series of paintings called Americans Who Tell the Truth. You can go online, that's the name of the website. It's a remarkable series of paintings. And of course, one of the people that he determined and knew from experience and from reputation who tells the truth was Chief Oren Lyons. And that's the painting that Rob did. So Rob is a neighbor of my brother's, and Doug knew about this painting, and so asked Rob if there was any way to get time to talk to Oren and Rex. And it was arranged. We had an audience with them in Rex's living room for a whole afternoon. They were so generous with their time. And Doug kindly invited me and DH along, and we came away so inspired that we resolved to bring these words of wisdom to as wide a community as we could in our hometown and to Dylan's team. And so that's how this came about. So it couldn't have happened without Doug. He subsequently also wrote to all of his alumni players and asked to help support this. And they were incredibly generous. And I think some of them are here, and so thank you for that. The evening is being presented by the Friends of Hanover Lacrosse. And Lindsay Fox is the president of that organization. Rob Adams, who is better known as the father of Caroline, who is the captain of the girls' Hanover lacrosse team. Let's hear it for Caroline. And Rob sort of headed up our fundraising efforts, so big thanks to Rob. The Friends of Hanover Lacrosse are generously supported by Jack and Dorothy Byrne Foundation, and they supported not only Friends of Hanover Lacrosse, but this evening as well. We also got a generous donation from the New Hampshire Tomahawks Lacrosse Club. We'll talk a little bit more about that name in a little while. But we genuinely are grateful for their support. And I hope, and I think some of the representatives are here tonight. CATV, as you can see, is recording this evening and will be broadcasting or narrowcasting or streaming or whatever in the next day. Is that right, Cedar? All right. Thank you, Cedar. Thank you very much for Tom Hermanson, who is back there on the soundboard. And thank you for Tom? Yeah. And so if the sound goes bad, you know where to turn. And finally, thank you for the Richmond School and Tim Boyle for providing this space to us. So, finally, thank you for that, for indulging me in that. Rex Lyons is a member of the Eel clan of the Onondaga Nation. He's a former player, coach, and board member of the Haudenosaunee, or Iroquois, Nationals Lacrosse team, and president of the Haudenosaunee Nationals Development Group. He's been a leader in the effort to include lacrosse in the Olympics, so we can all hope that we'll be seeing it in 2028. He's also the founder and lead vocalist and guitar player for the fabulous Ripcords, a very successful upstate New York roots and blues band. And you may have, if you were paying attention, heard them when you were coming in. They really are good. And his CDs are out in the lobby. For those of you who got to watch the Spirit Game, Pride of a Nation, it's a film that Oren and Rex produced along with, or as part of One Bowl Productions. That is an incredibly good documentary. I'm a documentary filmmaker, so I don't say that lightly. This is a really interesting film and moving film about this game that has been a gift to all of us. So I really recommend that you find that. And in fact, those are on sale outside as well. Sorry about that. If you did see that game, that film, you will remember that the first winning goal in international competition for the Haudenosaunee Nationals against England was scored by Rex. Rex, te hui dati, na wena scano. Oren Lyons, Chief Oren Lyons, is the faith keeper of the Turtle Clan of the Onondaga Nation, of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, or the Iroquois Confederacy. Chief Lyons has so many distinctions that I decided I was just going to read it from Wikipedia. Chief Lyons has been awarded an honorary Doctor of Laws degree from Syracuse University. He serves on the board of the Harvard Project on American Indian Economic Development and is a board chairman of Honoring Contributions in the Governance of American Indian Nations. He's received the Ellis Island Medal of Honor, the National Audubon Society's Audubon Medal, the Earth Day International Award of the United Nations, and the Elder and Wiser Award of the Rosa Parks Institute for Human Rights. Now, lacrosse. In 1988, he was inducted into the Syracuse University Hall of Fame. In 1989, he was named Man of the Year in lacrosse by the NCAA. In 1993, he was inducted into the National Lacrosse Hall of Fame. And in 1998, he was inducted into the Ontario, Canada Lacrosse Hall of Fame. In 2000, he was inducted into the upstate New York chapter of USA Lacrosse Hall of Fame. In 2008, he was inducted into the Native American Hall of Fame, and he is the honorary chairman of the Iroquois Nationals lacrosse team. Chief Oren Lyons, Joe Aqueso, Nyawena Scano. I'd like to start off by talking about words. And the first words are what I said, so maybe you guys could tell me what I said about that greeting in your names.
You said Nyawena Scano, thank you for being well. Scano is a word for peace. It's interesting that it also is the word for thank you and being well. So peace and well-being health important. You can't have one without the other, basically, with the two really good. So foundational, that's how we greet each other. Thank you for being well. And your answer is, Goshat Dogus, what you say is true.
And your name?
Joaquissa means sun rays making tracks through the snow. Wow. It's an old name. And our names, when I pass on, that name comes up for use again for anybody who will use it. So it's very old, all these names.
Rex, how about your name?
Yeah, my name's Dehoi Dadi, and that means he gets the message through. And it's been pretty apropos as of late. I find myself in some extraordinary company, and I couldn't have scripted, some of the places I find myself and the people that I'm engaging with, and it's been just a very, very fulfilling journey, and Lacrosse had a huge part of that.
Well, I said I wanted to talk about words, and I have to first say and ask Chief Oren Lyons. He's indulged me to call him Oren during the days, and I thank him for that. But is it best to call you Chief Lyons, or?
No, just call me Oren. we use our title name when you're in action. When you're not, you're just anybody else. So right now, I'm just anybody else.
I'm trying to model this behavior of asking people what they like to be called, because more and more that's an important thing to do. And so the next question I have, Indian, American, Native American, indigenous?
It's a good question. When we were preparing to go to Geneva, Switzerland in 1977, we're taking indigenous peoples from North Central South America. And that was the question. We said, when we get there, how do we announce ourselves? So we went through all the words that you just said, and we decided collectively, we said indigenous, which is a very broad, and we said that's how we will announce. We are the indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere. And little did we know at the time that there were indigenous people around the whole world. And I was in a learning process myself, keep hearing more and learning more. So the word indigenous is what we designated, and that's why everybody's using it now today.
That's where it started.
77 or 76, they were using it. They were calling it what you said, native, or, But America is named after an Italian, Amerigo Vespucci. Come on. And then, when Columbus got here, he thought he was in India, so all of a sudden we're Indians, So forever, every time I'm traveling internationally and so forth, and across from people from India, I have to apologize to them. You guys are the real Indians. But again, see, the whole foundation is on mistakes. America and Indians, two big fundamental mistakes. That's not a good start. But that's how it is, and then how do I get into the list after that? But it's a long one.
It is true, isn't it, though, Rex, that, there are Indian groups, for instance, that use that term, and other groups use indigenous and Native Americans?
Yeah, well, you have to remember that anybody that's gone through a school system has been colonized and institutionalized, and they have, frame of reference, like Iroquois, for instance. That's in all the textbooks, and people just assume that was, collectively agreed upon. But that's what the French called us. And it's a derogatory term as well. That's why we're now the Haudenosaunee. See, people don't know that's derogatory. They just assume, well, it's in the books, everybody says it, so it must be okay. No explanation. And that's why we said, because of the history that we've experienced, we were very cautious of where we pick and choose our battles. Just given that we had to be sure that if we were going to put any energy into it, that we would make sure that it was the right thing to do. And as we notice now, with the social climate of everything, you see people are just not standing still for status quo. They want things to change if they're wrong. Fix it. It's broken. So you can see people are starting to be very empathetic, a lot of compassion for things just being misguided and mishandled and misunderstood for all this time, and it's not good. It's not a good way to communicate. It's not a good way to interact. It's not healthy. It's got to be collective. It's got to be agreed upon. And I think one good illustration is what the young people just did earlier, acknowledging the people who were here first. We have a thing called coming to the edge of the woods. Whenever we go somewhere, it's protocol. It's like knocking on the door. We just don't come barging in and say, "Hey, we're here." We send word. We come to the edge of the woods. We know where the territories are. We send a runner saying, "Hey, we'd like to have a conversation. Are you agreeable?" And there's a whole process, a discussion, a conversation before we get started, a greeting, But it's all based on respect and being welcomed, not intruding. This is something that we understand. And in order to have a healthy relationship, that's the best foot to start on. So, I could go on and on as to what your question was and how there's different groups. But as you get more experience, you'll find that you've been misguided in some of the things you've learned, and you have to come to your own conclusions. But if you dig hard, there's truth, and it's just not readily available because there's a whole agenda behind academics. I don't want to offend anybody who's in academics either, but that's just kind of the nature of the beast, So this is one thing that we really we're trying to fix. We're trying to take little steps because people just got to know who the Iroquois Nationals are. Now we're changing our name again. So, but this is something that has to be done. We're taking things, we're reclaiming things that were taken from us. And now that things have gotten to the point where we've gotten healthier as a nation, we've gotten healthier, in our recognizing where the ills are and having the fortitude and the energy to say, it's time that we just take a stand for this stuff and start reclaiming some of these injustices that have happened.
There's over 575 Indian nations in this country today that have relations with the federal government. I mean, people know about Cherokees. They hear Cherokees a lot and so forth, but Arapaho, Cheyennes, Natchez, 570 different names and languages. The languages are different as well. As old people, we've been here a long time, and many of the nations that were here originally are not here anymore. Many of them. So it goes on. Now you go down to Central and South America, hundreds native languages, native names, and very little known about it. Probably first time you're hearing some of this. As a professor at the University of Buffalo for 37, 38 years. And when I was kind of pressed into service, I didn't intend to be a professor, but some of the young people just said, we got to have an Indian program, so you got to, so they convinced me. Finally I went there. And it was fortunate. It was good for me. And I learned a lot. I had to learn a lot. And I'm still learning, But for Native nations, there's many. And if you leave this continent, Central and South America, you go to Africa or you go to Asia, the Native people there. is you know, many millions. So that was our trip to the UN in 1977 when we took a contingency of Native leaders from North, Central, and South America. And so we had to announce who we are. So we came to the conclusion, indigenous, because it's broad.
Could you, in an effort to enlighten us, the enlightenment that we need, could you talk a little bit about the history and the culture of the Haudenosaunee?
Well, Haudenosaunee, you know, it's very difficult to pinpoint, but they're slowly coming to a conclusion on that. Probably our Confederation is about 1,600 years old. You know, and if you go back to Columbus, it's only 4 or 5 days ago. And prior to that, we were here a long time. We're old people when they got here. You know, contrary to your books or their history or lack of it, basically lack of it. If I just asked you some common questions, you couldn't answer because you don't know. And you don't know because you've never been told. So little by little now that history is coming out. It's tough. It's a hard history. Projecting here, North America, a landfall of Columbus, at least 16 million people. In North America, I'm not talking about Central and South America, 100 people, millions. And when they did the census of the United States in 1900, there were 250,000 of us left. So the question remains is, what happened? 16 million people. And you should know that because it's your history. And it will be coming out, and this is a process now, right here, we're beginning that instruction. When people said that, there was a statement in a Newsweek not long ago, you know, maybe half a year ago, 6, 8 months ago. Anyways, I was going through there, and it said that the first sin of this country is about the Black Americans. I said, no. The first sin was the genocide of the native people of this country. That's the first one. And the second was obliterating the history. And around 1608 or 1611, brought slaves in, black people from Africa. That was a third one. So just correcting history. And you should spend some time now learning, because we're coming into, and we are in, a very serious situation today, existentially, for the existence of humanity as a whole. We are, you know, regardless of color, we're one family. That's the human family, it's one family. We can change blood. It doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter whether you're from India or China, you can change blood. You can't get any closer than that. That's family. So we're like dogs, you know, come in all sizes, colors, and shapes, but they're all dogs. And we come in all colors, sizes, and shapes. We're all people. We're family. We're related. And which means that we have to really look after one another and get past this serious problem of this country of racism. It's not only in this country, it's around the world. Got to deal with it, because we're going to need each other the next 15 or 20 years at serious times. As you know, looking after these young folks here. The peacemaker brought us together 1,600 years ago. He said, when you sit and you counsel for the welfare of your nation and your people, he said, think not of yourself, nor of your family, nor of even your generation. He said, make your decision on behalf of the 7th generation coming.
The 7th.
And he's talking the 80-year generation, not your shortcut of 20 years. 7 times. Make your decision on their behalf. You yourself will have peace. And this is simple. Peace is a simple word, but see how hard it is to keep it?
When the peacemaker brought you together, you're talking about the nations that brought the nations of the Confederacy together?
Yeah, five original nations. Starting from the east was the Mohawks, and then the Oneida, and in the middle is Onondaga, so it's us, and to the west of us was the Cayuga, to the west of them was the Seneca, and around 1712, around there, we began bringing in the Tuscarora, who originally were with us a long time back and then went south. And there's a big history of that, but they became the 6th nation. So that's what they call us. So our proper name is Haudenosaunee, people of the longhouse, that's what it means. And the French call us Iroquois. And the English call us 6 nations. And then, of course, you got the 6 nations. So people get really confused, you know, when they talk about who we are and so forth, because we are all that one and the same. And our system is based on the principle of peace. A great tree of peace. Contrary to what you hear about the fierce Iroquois. Well, we're fierce, all right. You stand and fight. Somebody coming in your door, you're going to fight. Can't come into your door. Anybody's going to fight. You start coming to your house. So it's a long story, a long history, and we have to get to it because collectively we're going to need each other, every one of us, with what's coming. And get ready, and it ain't over. You know, I use a philosophy, a contemporary historian or contemporary philosopher today, Yogi Berra. You guys know Yogi Berra? You got to check out what he says because he's got some amazing thoughts. It's kind of sideways. But one of the things he said was, well, he says, it ain't over till it's over. All right? Hear what I'm saying? It ain't over till it's over. That means you got to fight. Get in there and fight. We're here to do it collectively.
Rex, you're a member of the Eel clan, and Oren is a member of the Turtle clan and is faith keeper of the Turtle clan. Can you tell me about what that means? And what
Sure. You see my clan, he's looking up right there underneath that turtle's head. That's my clan here.
Incidentally, this is a painting by Oren. One of the things that wasn't in this biography is that he spent many years of his life as a commercial artist, a successful commercial artist. And this is one of his paintings of the Tree of Peace.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, we're a matrilineal society, which means, you know, we go by the mother side, which is totally contrary to what came across the water. And with that, you're going to get a whole different foundation of structure, of emphasis on leadership, you know, because women are looking for different qualities in leaders. You know, when they pick my father, for instance, they're looking for a family man, somebody who goes to the ceremony ceremonies, community-oriented. He's living a good life, and then now you get a tap on the shoulder. But somebody who's campaigning to be chief will never be chief. I'll tell you that right now. You know, it's the one who's just doing his business, and he's always helpful and doing things like that. And it's not an easy job either, because it's till you die. And this is something too that I mentioned earlier today, is that we think in cycles. We don't think linear. That's why all our traditions are orated time and time again, so that it continues, and you have to show up. So you learn these traditions, and we protect them, and so getting back to the matrilineal, my mother was eel, so it makes me eel. And it's really interesting when you tell somebody that we have a matrilineal society. They're kind of taken aback by that, but it's a really, I think, an extraordinary remark on our process, you know, and what sets us apart, why we talk about peace, friendship, and healing. I mean, these are qualities. We talk about our Mother Earth. You know, we have great reverence for the female, and you know, one of the reasons, I don't know how much you know, but when the women's movement started in Seneca Falls, it's because they were talking to our clan mothers, saying, "What are you guys doing? Or what are you girls doing? You get out there, you know, speak up for yourself." And this is where they started going, yeah, you know, and they started to give them a little encouragement, because they weren't used to that. Still, you know, still struggling to break the glass ceiling, you know. And we understand that they're our partners. We're equals. We have duties. We have different abilities, and it's very important to understand that. Like, everything has a duty. Everything has a specific purpose, and it's by design, you know. And these are things that we understand. We grow up with it, and we have great reverence for it. But
Just one thing I wanted to clarify, though. The clan mothers are not the leaders, but
they own the titles. See, they choose the leader. So they're the ones that pick the leaders. So this is a true democracy. You know, we have the two houses, which is the mud house and long house, where you get your two houses of government from. They kind of went to the buffet and took a little of this and some of that. That they left some of the real stuff out, you know, which we said you shouldn't do. And anyway, the clan mother, she has it's her title, and she puts up her candidate, and she also has the right of removal. You know, you get 3 warnings, and that she'll dehorn you, and they'll get a new leader. Now, that's real democracy. You don't have to wait for the end of the term. If somebody's not doing their job for the common good, you know, you're going to hear about it, and something's done about it. And so we have a real process, and that's the other thing, is that his responsibilities for life, and it's hard on him, because you get very little thanks. You get all the problems. You get all the headaches. You get, like, what's wrong with it? And that's what they say when you're going to be a chief or any a title holder. They said your skin's got to be 7 spans thick. 7 spans thick from all the abuse you're going to get. And he said, and not from the strangers or you know, peripheral. It's going to come from your family, your friends, you know. And they said, this is something you have to be prepared for. So you have to emotionally and spiritually prepare that this is kind of what you're signing up for, but understand it's for the common good, and you can do good, and that you know, it balances itself out, but it's also very demanding.
Now, the peacemaker made the system matrilineal 1,600 years ago. He said the earth is female, therefore the women are in charge of the earth, which is a fact. And he says women are actually in charge of life. And he said that the family, the clan, you call it clan, will have a clan mother. She chooses all the leaders by consensus. She makes a choice, but she has to have the consensus of the clan to agree, and not by a vote, consensus. Okay, that's her choice. They agree. So you have the candidate for what they call a chief. Haudenosaunee, we call it a peacemaker. It's not a chief. That's, again, crosser. Haudenosaunee, peacemaker. So he's got to have a partner, which is called a sub-chief. Then you have a faith keeper that's male, the faith keeper that's female, a clan mother. She appoints all these people. And you put the person up, it comes. So my clan mother is here at Onondaga. She oversees the conduct of all these people, and she has the responsibility, the power, and the authority to remove that title from us. For whatever reason, I misbehave and I'm doing something. There's a long process to this, but everybody tries to keep the leader up. I've gone off stray, whatever. She is responsible for that, and she can remove that title, and has and will. So it's not just a Jew. She has the control of that title, and she has to fill that title. So it's a family, always the extended family. So the responsibility, and we're matrilineal, so the responsibility then of the clan mother and the chief and so forth, one, work together, partners. We're basically partners. In the longhouse, you have a women's side and you have the men's side. And then we meet. Today, we have back and forth discussions. So we're probably the last traditional leadership in the country still in charge of land, not under the Bureau of Indian Affairs. This system is old, in 16. And they've never been able to take that away from us. We fought all these years to where we are. That's why we carry a passport, a Haudenosaunee passport. When we go and play, he's been carrying that passport for quite a while now. But that's a Haudenosaunee passport. It's not a U.S. passport. And we have to...
And it's not easy.
There's quite a few adventures on that one, let me tell you.
Well, that's actually an excellent way for us to get into lacrosse. Let's talk about lacrosse.
Yeah.
It was a great gift that you gave us. You know, I think a lot of you out there that are in the lacrosse world will understand when I say, when I first started playing, my brother and I started playing in Maryland, and at that point, Maryland, upstate New York, and Long Island was where people play lacrosse. Yeah. But we quickly learned that playing lacrosse put you in a community, an incredibly tight community. It was weird, you know. I would go to a party in Baltimore, and someone would find out that I played lacrosse, and we just bonded. We would start talking about lacrosse or other things, but there was some part of the community that we felt some membership in. I suspect it came from this long tradition, but we can talk about that in a second. But I don't know, a couple years ago, when Dylan, my son, DH, really started getting into lacrosse, he came to me one day and he said, you know what's really great about this sport? When I meet other people that play it, it's like we're in the same family or something. I don't even know them, and they play lacrosse. I don't know any other sport that's like that. And I suspect, as I said, that it comes from this heritage. So the Haudenosaunee gave us lacrosse. Who gave you lacrosse?
Oh, the Creator. That's what we call the Creator's game. Our cosmology says that lacrosse was being played on the other side while this earth was still covered with water. And there's a whole story about that, but that's just one part of it. So on the other side, they said that the land on the other side, the Creator's land, is almost a mirror reflection of what you see today. So you have to go back a bit to see what it was in the beginning, because we kind of damaged the earth pretty good right now. Pretty bad situation as it is, but basically that's what it is. It goes way back. So lacrosse is old, and
it's a medicine. It's your medicine game.
Yes, originally there's a mystery to people. People get confused about that, but there is an actual game that's played for medicine, and it's the old game. I mean, there's 2 stakes down here, that's the goals, and 2 stakes over here. Whatever field you can find, or how big it is, small, whatever. and then 2 sides. And then it goes by clan side, like he's talking about, or it can go old guys against young guys. Men against, not the boys, but men against young men. And what makes the difference, what makes the sides is all the men who have children, you're over here, you're the men. All the men who do not have children, you're over there. That's where the sides are. So remember the first game, now his clan is in the other house. The Wolf clan's over here, his clan's in the other house.
So let me just, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I just want to say one thing so you're not confused. Oren is in the Wolf clan, but he's faith keeper of the Turtle clan because he was asked to do that by the clan mother of the Turtle clan. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But in fact, he was born into the Wolf clan and will always be in Wolf clan. So when he plays for the Wolf clan.
Yeah, but the wolf and the turtle on the same side, it's complex. We can borrow back and forth. When the clan mother can't find a candidate, she can go to the next clan. Big process, big process. But anyway, here we are. And so we line up and Rex, I don't know, how old were you then?
I was a little guy. You know, I was just excited to be playing with the men, you know, and I thought.
He comes over and he lines up. Where did he go?
And playing with my father, I thought.
You're on the other side. This is in a look on his face. I said, you're on the other side. Because we were playing the 2 houses. And his house is on the other side, my house on this side. But now if we play, children, then we're on the same side.
So when this game is played, and again, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, when this game is played, it's played for, anybody can call a game, a medicine game. Anybody in the nation, basically, is that right?
Yeah.
And they can be called for reasons of healing people or resolving differences, is that right also?
Yeah, any number of things, and the thing to remember too is, when you're calling the game and whoever called it can be played for an individual, it can be played for a family, it could be for the community or nation or the Confederacy. And the first game of the year that's always played, first game we always have, this one is, we know we have to do it. It's not called, it's for anyone who picks the stick up. That's the first medicine game we have. So anybody who plays lacrosse, we're taking care of because we know it's a rough game, we don't want anybody to get hurt, but we know it's a contact sport, things happen, so we give thanks and we have a process to, have a good, healthy season, but that's the first game we have.
But this game, from what I've learned from them, is so connected to peace, to community, to the environment, and maybe you can talk about the stick.
Yeah. So could you go back to the Tree of Peace too? Flip that back because it's relevant to this here. Now, this is my stick. This stick, we talk about when you're born and you're a male. This is how important it is to our culture. It's so fundamental to who we are. When you're a male, you're one of 3 things. You're either a speaker of the language, which means you can do the ceremonies and you can speak the language, or you're a singer of the songs for the ceremonies, or you're a lacrosse player. That's how important it is. You're one of those 3 things. And like I said earlier today, there's always that guy who's all 3 of them. He can do it all. But this hickory stick here, this is going to go to the other side when my days comes and I go see the Creator. This will be buried with me. And they always say, the day before, they know up in Creator's land when I'm going to be coming. I don't know, but I'll be facing off that day. And they announce who's facing off tomorrow. So I'll be ready. But anyway, this hickory stick, when the stick maker goes into the woods and starts looking for a tree, the whole process is different. There's a relationship. There's a communion going on. It's not something, you're not just out prospecting, looking for something to just kind of take unconsciously and going mechanically about it. This is something that very mindfully done. So he's looking for certain characteristics, to help make a good stick. And as he's doing that, he's also planting hickory trees. He's not just taking them. There's a balance there. You don't just take. It's always give and take, and there's always trying to strike balance. And so when he finds that perfect tree, he gives thanks. The whole process, thanking this tree for giving its life so we can play the Creator's game, so we can express, give this great expression that the Creator loves lacrosse. There's nothing better than a good lacrosse game. He loves that. It gives him great joy. So we have a stick now, and the whole process, he has to drag the log back. The whole process to making this stick, you got to split it all down, let it cure before you can actually bend it. It's like 6 months before you can, the whole process before you can even take the bark off of it. And you can only get so many sticks out of one log, the perfect size log. And it's heavy work. You can't rush it. There's no shortcut. There's no assembly line. And there's a reason for that. To keep balance in things. So back in the day, when those older sticks you saw, the net was made out of the sinew of the deer. That's what we used for the net. And the deer is the leader of all the animals. Now, let me go back. I got ahead of myself. So now you have the hickory stick, and the hickory stick represents everything that comes from our Mother Earth. Everything that grows is represented by the hickory stick. So you have everything that we depend on that sustains us is now represented there. Now the sinew of the deer, he's the leader of all the animals because he's on every continent. And you may or may not know that, but he's the leader of all the animals. So now we have the animals involved in this process too. And the wing is the four-legged, all of them. And this traditional mesh, this process, this weave right here, this represents the clans. Each one of these hoops is a family, and they're all linked together. That's a powerful expression. You can see this, you can feel it, you can touch it, you can understand it, and it cradles the medicine. The ball is the medicine. That ball is made the day of the medicine game. There's medicine in the ball, there's prayer, there's all kinds of process that goes with it, and whoever called the game gets the ball at the end of the game.
What's it made of? What's the ball made of?
It's made out of deer hide, and there's other things. It's also pretty tricky too. So everybody's got their special way about it, and not everybody can make a ball. But it's interesting. It's the same stitching as a baseball, which was long before baseball came around. Just to kind of give you a little perspective. So you have the natural world, you have the families, and all commune together in this spiritual effort. It's a spiritual origin, it's a spiritual game. That's why when he was talking about his son, Dylan, saying, wow, I feel something. I can't put my finger on it. Anybody who picks up the stick, I had a great example of this. I got asked to go coach the Swedish team over Sweden. They were trying to play box lacrosse. They invited me over. They had a big reception. It was great. And one of the female Swedes got up. She goes, I want to say something. I have to say something. No offense to my husband, my now husband, but when I picked up the stick, I fell in love faster with lacrosse than I did my husband. And I could relate to what she was saying. I could understand exactly what she was saying. There's something that just kind of consumes you, that's all consuming. When I first got my stick, it was always in my hand. I was wearing Carol, I was walking down the road. I was always adjusting the shooting strings, adjusting the net, trying this, trying that. It became an extension and an expression of who I was. This is me right here. I mean, it doesn't get any closer. This feels like home. And this is something that the origins, that's what makes this game different, and you might be experiencing that yourself, and that's why the community, the brotherhood, the sisterhood is different. It's because of the origins and where it comes from. It's bigger than just the act of the secular game, which we all enjoy and it's fun, but it's deeper than that. And that gets back to this tree here. That's the tree of peace. Now, we talk about 1600 when the Confederacy was brought together. We were all warring. We were fighting. Things were bad times before the peacemaker come. And after he came, it's a long story. I know I have to go through the short version to kind of skip ahead here, but just imagine, if you will. Now that tree of peace, it's a spiritual tree. It goes from here to the heavens. There's 4 white roots that you can't really see that go in the 4 cardinal directions of the earth and right around. It's all the way, again, circular, cycle, connected, together, collective, always inclusive. And that tree represents all of the universal laws that govern all life, all of them. And you can see all the clans are in that tree. Those are all the clans: the bear, the wolf, the snipe, the herring, the turtle, the eel, the hawk, the deer. They're all the clans. And we were told that, you know, those principles, those laws, they're just laws, and that you have to know those laws and you work within the rhythm of that law, or else. Because nature does what it does. Nature is in charge, nature's the boss. And then this is something I always try to say, is that there's a huge disconnect in the contemporary world we all live in, and trying to, you know, get along in. Things have kind of gone off course because of this disconnect, and the commerce has hijacked so much of everything that it touches, because it's so powerful in itself that you lose that connection, that spiritual, organic thing that we are, because we're all, you know, very vulnerable, you know, flesh, blood, and bone. We need things to sustain us, you know. We need these things if we're going to have a good life. And if we start to exploit them, they're finite. They're not resources. These are life-giving forces that need to be protected, and understand that there's a balance, a fine balance. Like, just because there's a tree there and you cut it down because it makes a good house, there's a whole community of bushes around it that go too. You know, whole biodiversity, and you just have to start to understand that. And this is something that, when I talk about Lacrosse, when I talk about the environment, I go, how did we get there? You know, this is, I said, well, because we belong there. We are the environment, and you better understand that, or you're going to make poor decisions, unhealthy choices that could have long-term repercussions, which we're all starting to feel. You feel it.
Actually, I heard Oren, you say on an interview somewhere that the Haudenosaunee had no word for wild. There was not something separate from them that was wild. Is that right?
Yeah. You know, it's just, I'm not a master of my own language, but we do have really strong speakers, and one of our leaders was a woman. She was clan mother, a real strong leader, and she said, I was trying to find our word for wild. She says, we don't have a word for wild. Nothing's wild. Nothing's wild. She said, the closest that I could come to it is free.
Wow.
Free. She said, that's the closest I could come in our language to what they're talking about, the wild. So, you know, the Wild West didn't get wild till the cowboys got there. That got pretty wild, you know. So it's a, you know, it's a lesson you learn. And we've been, you know, they call us fierce warriors, fierce fighters. The Iroquois have this. It's based on peace. That's where we are. So look how far off this got. You know, and you go across the country with all these other different nations, you're going to find all of these things. But when a speaker from, say the Navajo speaker is speaking, or a Hopi speaker, I don't understand what he's saying because he has a different language, but I know what he's saying, and he's speaking for all of us, whether it's Hopi, whether it's Navajo, whether it's Haudenosaunee, whether it's all the same. And then when we went to Geneva in '77, we found out that South America, Central America, all the same. So we had 1 day to get organized and 2 days to get started, and then our meeting was on the third Monday. We were arriving on Friday, and on Sunday at probably 4 in the afternoon, North Central America, we had all our speakers because we think the same. And one day we met. So the next day when we're talking to the world, all our speakers are lined up because we think the same. North, Central, and South America. Peace in the earth and the land.
Wow.
I want to share one thing because we have a lot of young players here, and I think it's really important to share this. I had an experience as a young lacrosse player, and we're always trying to navigate the human experience, because I'm just as human as the next person with all the same distractions. Got my iPhone, iPad, I have all of those things. But anyway, I was just starting to feel my oats, and I had just made the men's team. I was 17 years old, which is like pretty good. That doesn't happen. Anyway, I was at the Longhouse at a ceremony. One of the clan mothers goes, "Oh, it's so nice to see you. Come over here, sit down. I haven't seen you. Come over, sit down. Talk to me." So I went over there, and I was feeling pretty good. And she goes, "That was a great game last night. Oh, boy, you guys really nailed them." And she was going, and she said, "Great. You had one goal behind you. Oh, just awesome." She goes, "I've been watching you, though." And I looked back and took a little different tone. She says, "Our people, our community love lacrosse, and we take great pride in our good players." She says, "Lacrosse, it's not yours. Your gift that the Creator gave you, the ability to play the game very well for us, and you're one of our top players. She says, that's a gift. That you're supposed to protect it. You have a responsibility to that gift, meaning your behavior on and off the field. You got little ones watching you." I went, uh-oh. This just took a wrong turn here, but I was feeling pretty good about myself. I was getting cocky. The ego kicks in. I was able to do certain things. Brought me back down to earth. This was a clan mother. This is talking about a village raising a child. That concept is real. She sat me down, and that's a mile marker. I remember, never forget that moment. It really, it was one of the most extraordinary moments of my life, because I carry it with me to this day, and I share this, how she brought me down to earth, and how that's the challenge we have every day within ourselves, the discipline. We can be the very best or the very worst as human beings. We have that in us. And you have to work hard at being the very best, because it's a lot harder to be the very best. It's really easy to pull the covers over your head, sleep till noon, and not care and do what you need to do. That's easy. It has its own gravity. If you don't work hard, get up early, when you do those things, you accomplish more. You seem like, wow, I feel pretty good about that. But that takes effort, and it really takes mindfulness. But I wanted to share that with the younger players. Like, when you understand that the Creator gave this to you, you have this ability, and there's a reason for it, because it's your personality, your character. And one of the reasons that I have it, it's because I'm sitting here talking to you now. She said, you've got to take care of that. It's a gift. You have a responsibility to that. Now here I am, many, many, many years later, after I had that conversation. She brought me back down to earth. I was feeling pretty humble after that, getting me right-sized again, which we do a lot in our community. We try to keep people, sure-footed, on the ground. And I just wanted to share that with you. That's how our leaders, our women, they come in there and they see the guys straying off, grab them, sit them down. Don't yell at them. Just explain the responsibility that's there. It takes on a whole different. Like I just said, it's one of my most, I would say, profound moments I've ever. It's a mile marker that I'll never forget. In my journey.
I want to talk a little. I'm interested in this connection between the medicine game and what you call the secular game, but today the Tupperware game. There's clearly a connection. They're very different in some ways, and obviously the modern secular game has the roots in the medicine game. And Oren, I'm interested in when you first began to play the secular game and then went and became a star at Syracuse. What was that transition like, and how did you feel about that game that you played in college?
I was playing, we were playing box lacrosse. Like I said, I was 5 years old, and my father was, the team was playing in small town between Rochester and Syracuse.
Geneva.
Yeah, and I had the good fortune to travel with my father to the game, and it was cold. I know all the men had these big overcoats on, and we went to Geneva, and that was a secular game. I mean, there were,
Is that the first one you remember going to, or?
that was, well, the first box game I saw that I remember, 5 years old. Wow, that's what I remember. And big, fast, a lot of action, which is in the box, as you see. And then we've always played the outside game, so I'm familiar with both of them. But the medicine game is a lot more rare. They're not playing the medicine game every day, but the secular game we're playing all the time. So it's always been there.
Right.
The two have always been there.
Right.
So it's just when they say, there's a game, medicine game. Okay, it means you better show up with your stick.
Yeah.
And it better be wooden. If you show up with your Tupperware, you're not going to play. Nothing sacred about the plastic. So that's why so our men across the Six Nations, they all got their wooden sticks. And over the process of this, of course, they outlawed that stick. Can't use wood. And it's strictly commerce.
Yeah.
Strictly commerce. Everything's commerce. But when we play, we use that stick, wooden stick.
That brings up a question that I'm sure at least half the audience has, and that is the medicine game is played by men. And yet I know both of you are very supportive of the women's game in the secular world. Can you talk about why it's only played by men and how that?
Well, they said that the women, they're just stronger than we are. That's all, and they renew themselves every month. They renew themselves, and they're so that's why they say shouldn't touch the stick, because they're too strong. They're too strong.
They said it would challenge the medicine, the lacrosse medicine. It was stronger, so it would kind of cancel it out. That's why they said they would probably not a good idea.
And yet, I've heard you say that the women are the biggest fans of the lacrosse, and there was a time when the women were playing for a little while, right? I think you mentioned today. Could you talk about that?
Well, there wasn't Tupperware yet. There was all wooden sticks. The clan mothers approached our team, because we had a team. We had a women's team playing. They were doing pretty good. Iroquois Nationals women's team. And the clan mothers came and they said, we're not sure whether that wooden stick you're using affect the medicine. We're not sure. Maybe it could, but they were concerned. And the women, when they heard that, put the sticks down, walked away. But now with plastic sticks out there, they're all playing, so that's not a problem. But number one was the medicine, and so you have to be careful about it. It's powerful and sacred.
I'm always very adamant about things. We're very mindful about our ceremonial boundaries. We don't ever cross-thread them. We don't, and that's never the intent, because with the medicine game, there's all kinds of intent. There's a process to it. Or the secular game, that's not that at all. But, somebody who comes from a different time, different generation, have a hard time separating that, and it's too much, kind of a broad stroke. So it was a process as we started to develop and evolve our thinking, as our more and more granddaughters want to play lacrosse, and you see some of the clan mothers softening up a little bit, because they see this. Why shouldn't they play our game? And this again is another expression of gender equality. So how can our own women not play this game that the rest of the women are enjoying? It's our game. We should really need to look at this. Anyway, there's been an agreement that this is okay. It's really gotten to this point now where they get more fans than we get sometimes, because they've been waiting to play so long, and people are excited to see the women play.
Just to give you,
the women were very good about it. They didn't argue. They recognized immediately what you were saying. They put the stick down and walked away.
and indeed, it was the clan mothers who were the ones that were...
Well, yeah, it was the clan mothers. That wasn't us. They said, no.
Just to give you some perspective on how good these players are from the Haudenosaunee Nationals. They're number 3 in the world out of 72, is that what you told me?
76 teams now around the world.
76 teams. These are players drawn from a very, very small pool compared to the players of all the other nations. So they're from the nation of the Haudenosaunee. So tell them those numbers. What the numbers?
The USA has roughly around 500,000. This was a while back. 500 lacrosse players to get 26 good players. Canada has 200,000, and we got about 130 to 140 depending on the year.
So they're drawing all their players from 130, 140 players.
Right now we have the number 1 player in the world. That's Lyle Thompson.
Yeah.
He shattered that Division I record that I don't think is going to be touched for quite some time. But as I say that, I also recognize that the playing field is leveling. Everybody's playing the game. I don't see, you had these big powerhouses that you couldn't beat them. And you can see on a given day, you can beat them. People are getting up. And this is the game. This is everybody picking up the stick. Everywhere you go, you see it's the fastest growing sport in the world right now. There's not enough venues, there's not enough referees, there's not enough coaches.
Now, where do you think baseball came from? The bat and the ball. To say, what's the name of the town?
Cooperstown.
Cooperstown. It's upstate New York. We have a game called long ball, bat and the ball, that we've been playing centuries, right? You have a pitcher, and he's not the one that pitches from the mound out there. He faces the batter. You have a base here and a base down there, and you have a pitcher, a shortstop, 2 men here. You have a man down there on the baseline. You have 3 outfielders. And we've been playing this game a long time, and it's upstate New York.
Wow.
And so I always thought, I said, Native people have put a lot of effort into games, to develop these games. We have a winter sport out there called snow snake. And I don't know whether you've ever seen one or not, but it's carved wood, hickory, or it could be, they do all kinds of things, but slender, like a spear, but it's smooth. And they make a track in the snow. And see who can throw the farthest. They throw that snake and it goes up the track.
It slides through the track.
They put wax on that thing. And the colder the day, the better it runs, And so in the middle of the winter, everybody's freezing over. We got people out there throwing snow stick, playing that game.
Are they throwing it overhand or?
It's kind of a
sidearm.
It's kind of a sidearm.
Yeah.
It depends on the throwers because it's a track. And you got to land it right in that track. It goes up the track. You drag a log about this big, that makes the track.
All right.
You set the track up there. So how far do you think you'd throw it?
I have no idea. 300 feet.
They made a track up in, on the river in the Six Nations in Canada.
Grand River, yeah.
And they said there was a record throw up there on that track because it was just right at level all the way. 2 miles.
Get out of here. Chief, I believe almost everything you said.
Well, you know, in our regular games that they throw, maybe you have to have people standing along the track to holler who threw the snake and it's coming.
All right, right.
The snake is coming. That's why the snake looks like it's when you see it go up. Now you get 3 snakes, 3 throws, and which goes the farthest wins. And you know, it's average half a mile, so.
Wow. Did you do that?
No, I'm not a good thrower. I couldn't get that snake in the track.
You're a good stopper. You like to stop the ball.
No, it just jumps out. You got to land it. You got to land it just right.
How about you,
really
Rex?
got to land it.
I was another one where, because that's another thing, it takes a real knack for it, because where you're pitching it in, it's about, I don't know, 4 feet high, where it receives the snake, and it's so easy to jump, hit it wrong, and it flies out of the, so it's a real art. And the guys who can do it, you'd be surprised. You'd think that these big bulky guys, it's the lean, wily guy, he's got a whip in it, you know, and he gets it in right in the track, and it's amazing to see, you know.
Yeah,
You can see it. If you Google it, it'll come up.
They got teams coming from all the different territories. They compete against it.
So all the nations play?
Yeah.
So everybody plays it.
So, you know, Oren talked about this before, but the Onondaga Nation is, I don't know if it's unique, but it's very, very rare that this is a sovereign nation. They've never made an agreement that they would give up their sovereignty to the United States of America. And that's why they've argued that they should have their own passport. There are many, many tribes that have reservations, and they have some of their reservation laws, but they're not sovereign nations. And it was in fact explained to me by Rex and Oren that to make the kinds of deals that a lot of the tribes have made to have gaming on their reservation, they've had to give up their national sovereignty to do that. And so the Onondaga Nation has had to fight hard for this, and Lacrosse has played a big role because it's been a way for them to be recognized, their identity to be recognized. And if you guys would talk about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, the game itself has allowed us to compete. You know, we compete at the international level. Like I say, you know, you're playing the USA. Steve Stenerson's salary is almost our whole budget for the year. And he's just the leader. But we manage. And I think the issue of these games coming and the indigenous people coming forward and the values that are behind it that we've managed to keep at a struggle, you know. We've all been damaged, everybody's been damaged by it, but we still hold our ceremonies, and we still hold the languages, and we still hold our territories. And the foundation behind it is what your leaders said to us in 1775. The Continental Congress come to us and they said, we're going to have a big fight with our father. I said, you know that, sure, we've been watching all the time. Our leaders, they knew our leaders by name, but for 400 years of interaction. And Six Nations presided on all those meetings. If our leaders weren't there, you didn't have a meeting. I don't care who you were. And so they said, we're going to have this big fight. We'd like you guys to stay neutral. Can you stay out of it? Because they knew we were a long-time ally with the English against the French. And I said yes. And the English leaders said the same thing to us earlier that spring, 1775. So that key treaty, very important, which every one of you should see and every one of you should know. I'm working on it right now. It's about 28 pages. It's almost an hour-by-hour discussion each day, preparing to come to the meeting, and see the amazing respect they had for the Haudenosaunee. This is the foundation of your nation. And they said, we're going to make it. They said, you advised us in 1744 in Lancaster at a meeting to make a nation like yours. And that was a Onondaga chief speaking, Kanesitego. He said, why don't you make a union like ours? Look how respected we are. Look how we have authority instead of you fighting each other all the time. And he said, you make a union like ours. And he said, never fall out with one another. Make a union like ours, but never fall out with one another. So, what do you see today? What do you see? Now, that advice that he gave you, never fall out with another, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. Now, and that's because you lose your union, and you got powerful adversaries over there. You should reassess what's going on, basically, and get back together again. Serious times, not only, on the larger picture, human beings are a species on this earth like other species, but the earth itself, and we talk about, the earth itself is its own entity. And it's part of a bigger structure, as you know, all over this whole thing. You've affected that. And so now, as human beings, you're arguing against each other. In the face of the reality coming, there's bombs going off, explosions going off today, when you should be conserving the air, conserving everything. You're going the opposite way. And human beings, from my perspective, are like fleas on a dog. You're having your little fight here, a dog is going to shake and be gone. Boom. They better think about that. Conduct. How do you, in 1950, I got into the Army, had a big fight over there in Korea. There were 2.5 billion people in the whole world. 1950. That's 70 years ago. How many today? You're almost 8. You've tripled the population in one lifetime. And you don't have enough water, you don't have the land, and you certainly don't have the governance. There's an unbalance of wealthy and poor people. There's an imbalance of wealthy nations, and you're going to have to strip away a lot of things and unify yourself, like our leader said. And the words that really ring in my mind is what he said, and never fall out with one another. So you guys really got to think about that. There's a big adversary out there, things going on, and 7 generations, I have a great deal of concern for these young people here. That's my responsibility, 7 generations. I worry about you people here. A little story, we had, as a chief in the longhouse, we had about 6 boys sitting in front of us for doing some bad stuff, whatever it was. They were like teenagers, little lovers, teenagers, and we were sitting in front of the chiefs, and we were going to deal with them. And the old old man standing there, chief farmer, he couldn't hardly see, his eyes were bad. So he goes up to the boys that are sitting there, and he looks at them, see who they are. And he said, "Can you tell me why you just did what you did?" And there was one of the young boys stood up, and he said, "I'm the leader here." He said, "I'm the one." He said, "I'm the one that you should be talking to, because I'm the one that talked them into it." And he looked at the boys, and he looked at the young man, and he said, "If this boy here, jumped off a cliff, would you all follow him off the cliff?" No. He said, "Be your own leader." He talked to each one of the person. That goes to every one of you. Be your own leader. Your own thinking. Good advice. Be careful where somebody's going to take you off the cliff. Careful. Here we are. So it's a heavy note, but it's a real one. On the other hand, we got the Iroquois Nationals headed for the games. We want to get them over there. We have to fundraise for them. It's expensive to get them there, but the idea is peace. That's the idea here. We should be playing games instead of fighting. And I see your team out there today. Pretty good. Pretty good. Remember what Yogi Berra says, right? It ain't over till it's over. We're going to fight.
Your Excellency, could you teach us all how to say thank you?
Sure. Yawaha. Yawaha says thank you.
We have some time.